will, if you approve this contract, then we'll be doing the construction observation for the project. And we base our workload on the number of working days that are assigned to it. And generally, so with 110 working days, that's basically a 22-week construction period. And then we, depending on the length of the contract, for this one, we kind of assume that they might have about 10 rain days, so then we look at maybe a total construction period of 24 weeks, which would, if they didn't start until May 19th, that would put them out into probably the middle of October for completion. I hope that whoever gets it will want to start sooner than that, but they don't have to. It's kind of up to the contractor's workload. And that gives them some more flexibility.
It doesn't do us any good then to have a special council meeting. It doesn't speed the process up any then, rather than wait another 2 weeks for a council meeting then, basically.
Well, the only reason that it might help, and I just got an email on Friday from DOT, there's a stipulation in the contract that apparently the West Des Moines River has a potential, and this was in the paperwork, we knew it when we submitted it, but there's a potential habitat for a Topeka shiner. And does that sound familiar to anybody? I mean, are you familiar with that?
We're not Kansas, so we don't want to speak to this.
And so what that means is that we had to establish in the contract with the contractor that there can be no project activity conducted within the stream between the dates of May 15th and July 31st. And we got a question from one of the contractors, well, like, how are we going to build it if we can't do anything in the stream? And I'm working with the DOT on how to respond to them right now. And one of the things that we were talking about is that if they did start, the sooner they can start, the better. The sooner they can get the bridge out of there, obviously that would be work that'd be done prior to May 15th. And then if they could start building the piers that are actually in the water, they get their coffer dams built and get that work done before May 15th, then they can start working on the west end of the bridge, which is out of the channel.
If they get the coffer dams built around, those can't be in there after the?
No, they can stay in there. They just
okay.
So it's the idea, I guess, is that you can't be working during the spawning period of the Topeka shiner. So if you already have something established, then you're not disturbing.
So if they can get the pilings in quicker, then they could continue working.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the benefit then of possibly having a special council meeting to approve the contract would be that the sooner you approve the contract, then the sooner they could get under contract, the sooner they might be able to get started.
Oh my God.
Now, I don't know that this is, I'm still working with DOT. Like I said, I just got this email late in the day on Friday, and I tried calling the guy today, Bob Welper from the district office, and he wasn't available, so.
Is that shiner name another name for carp?
No, I don't know. I'm not a.
Exactly.
They do have a different name on here, but that's not it. Notropis or Notropis topeka, also known as the Topeka shiner. But I'll find out more about this, and I'll let Aaron know, tomorrow or Wednesday, what more I can find out about this. But anyway, that was just one thing that kind of came up, and I'm not exactly sure how the DOT handles this, because obviously they build bridges all the time. Surely this is not the first time this has come up, so they must have some direction that they can give the contractors at this stage so that they know how to bid it. The contractors, I could see that if they didn't start till May 19th,
no problem.
They'd have a problem if we're tied with this. The other thing in that in the original NEPA document, it said for the environmental review, actually the box was checked that says, does this project involve an adverse effect to a threatened or endangered species? And the answer is no. But then it says there's a potential for a Topeka shiner to be in there. So we had to establish that dates with no project activity. And I would like to talk to somebody in the...
Do we actually have those in the river? That's just a potential, we could have one.
Right, I think that's it. And I think, so that's why I would like to talk to somebody in the environmental office at the DOT and see what exactly this really means. I mean, it was in there when we did the concept statement, you know, in January of last year or February of last year, and
Well,
I get-
could this potentially affect bid prices on the bridge, knowing that, or not necessarily?
I mean, it could. We've gotten, as far as we've only gotten one comment so far.
Okay.
So I don't, that's just one contractor's question it. The other contractors may feel like they want to come out early, get started as soon as they can, and it won't be an issue, but we need to respond to that one contractor, and that's what I'll be working on.
How many contractors requested plans yet, or anything like that?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
I wish I did. I should have checked on that, and I don't know that the DOT actually knows that either necessarily, because everything's available online
Oh,
now.
online, okay.
So, I did actually, this afternoon, I came down early, and one other thing I talked to Aaron about is the inspection of that bridge was due in January, and I thought that we didn't have to do it this year because it's coming out in a few months, and I called and talked to them in the bridge office about the bridge inspection office, and they said, well, if, you know, they don't know exactly what would happen, you know, if the bids were high and you rejected them, then we would have missed that opportunity to inspect it. So anyway, long story short, I went by and looked at it on the way down here, and I saw some footprints underneath the bridge. Now, that could have been kids, but it could have also been contractors out looking at the site. You know, it seemed like it was a likely contractor. So I think there's interest in it. There's people probably down checking it out. And maybe you've heard about people coming down and looking at the site. But, anyway, so that's a couple of updates there. I don't know, did you want me to kind of go through some of the items of work that we will do on this supplement as far as the...
Probably not a bad idea, just to give us a summary at least.
Okay, a quick summary is we kind of split up into basically three sections. There's construction administration, construction survey and staking, and construction observation. They're the three, and project management, which is like all of our projects. But for the construction administration, we would coordinate a pre-construction meeting, which would be a meeting that we'd have with the contractor and with anybody from the city who would want to come, and utilities. And at that meeting, we kind of go over this project schedule, you know, what is their plan on how they're going to get it done, coordinate with the utilities, make sure they're out of the way when the contractor wants to be in there, talk about traffic control and how they have to get their materials certified, and then work with them on let them know how the observation would work and who would be, you know, how we'd be doing the staking, and then any other administrative requirements, which is, like, they have to have, you know, like they have, because it's a federally funded project, they have to have certain wage rates for their employees, and they have to post all the proper documentation on the site and those kind of things, that we'll make sure that they are aware of that, which they will be, but we'll just talk about them. Also, as part of the construction administration, there's going to be shop drawings that need to be reviewed. And the items, there's the handrail on the fence. They'll have to send in their drawings of the handrail. And then the ornamental steel fence that's going to be in the park. They'll have to send in documentation on the form liners that we're going to put on that they'll use to create the stone look on the bridge. And then they'll have to send documentation about the colored sealers, and then all of the lighting fixture details and their layout for the lighting. Those are the items that will have to be reviewed. So they'll submit those shop drawings to WHKS, and we'll look at it. There's an item on here called WHKS will perform the wave equation pile driving calculations. And what that means is the contractor has certain equipment that they will submit. They'll say, well, we're going to drive piling, we're going to use this equipment, and then we have to make sure that equipment is satisfactory to drive the piles to the proper bearing that we need for the project. And then we create graphs that our inspector will use in coordination with the contractor, so that we know that they've actually met the requirements for driving when they are out there driving the piling. We added an item in here because I know there's, you know, like the city is still planning on, I assume still planning on doing the Veterans Memorial bridge details, and I know those were kind of left to where they're going to be added by the city later, or we'll coordinate with the contractor to get them added outside of the contract for the contractor, and we'll help coordinate that with you. So we added some time in there for that. And then I also put a bullet item for the inspection that I did this afternoon. And then The rest of it is kind of just regular correspondence. We'll, coordinate with the city and with the contractor, with the DOT, as part of the construction administration part. And then, at the end of the project, the Iowa DOT, the Federal Highway Administration through the Iowa DOT requires that there be certifications. We keep all the logs of all their materials to make sure that they meet the DOT's requirements, and so all of that documentation has to be audited by the DOT, and then we'll make sure that they get all that documentation, and then we'll go through the audit procedure with them. And then as far as the construction survey and staking, we will, set the controls for the bridge, and then do the staking for the, there's gonna be new storm sewer installed at the intersection on the east side of the bridge, and we'll stake that and the intakes for that, and then set the alignment for the piers, and make sure that they've got everything they need for that. The construction observation is the biggest item of the whole contract, and we will be on site. The DOT requires that whenever there's any work that is directly related to a bid item, you have to have somebody there to witness that it's been done according to the specifications. And so basically, we will have one of our inspectors out here every day throughout the whole project. And their job will be to make sure that the contractor's meeting the specs, the plans and the specifications. The way we budget that, because we don't know, some contractors like to work on Saturdays, some contractors never work on Saturdays, but what we do for budgeting our contract is we say that our inspector will be out there 50 hours a week. So part of his, that is 10 hours of overtime a week for that. And we base that on a 24-week schedule, which is the 22 weeks of working days plus 2 extra for assumed, there's gonna be some rain days, or some days that they won't be out.
So if they get done 4 weeks early, then that's money out, that's money to us?
That's right, it would be, we wouldn't, then, the sooner, if it goes faster than that, then we'll be done sooner, and you wouldn't be obligated, we'd bill you based on the time that we've spent out here. And then there's some other, we have time in there for a second construction observer, because one of the things that we have to do is sometimes there'll be days when it's just too much for one guy, like mainly, the big thing would be like when they're actually pouring the deck. We might need to have a second inspector out there, because one guy will be running tests, another guy will be, watching, make sure that nothing gets bothered in the deck reinforcing steel, and then we also have to have a guy go to do plant monitoring, so they go to the ready mix plant, take samples of the materials that they're using so that we can have those tested to make sure they meet the specifications. So there's a time for a second observer in addition to the one that'll be here basically full-time. And then once the project is complete, we'll create as-built drawings, which is, so there is likely to be some changes that'll happen throughout the project. Some, like the piles won't be as long as what we assume, or they may be longer than what we assume, so we'll make sure that at the end of the project, there'll be a set of plans that reflect everything being built the way it actually was built, not just what we have on the plans today. And I guess I think I hit most of the items on that.
I see that one of the expenses you had was because of the moving of the CenturyLink and the gas lines and stuff. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Can any of that be billed back to utility companies or not, or is that all our expense? I guess that's my question.
I guess I don't think so, not necessarily. This was, that part of it was that we were, I guess Aaron asked of me, he forwarded me their emails and asked me to respond to them just to make sure that we could keep them moving and get them out of the way, so.
Which is still, honestly, I don't know where they're at right now, but when you were talking about having a special meeting, it was like, can they even touch the bridge at this point? Because as far as I know, gas and CenturyLink are still on the bridge.
They would not be able to do anything until they're off the bridge.
Yeah, so those utilities, even with, I think Stanford buried them in information, honestly, with, all the different borings and everything, so it helped them, but even with that, they've been I mean, we're still waiting on them, honestly, I think.
Yeah, and now, are you guys familiar with what the two utilities that are on the bridge are planning to do right now? The CenturyLink actually has lines that are buried in the sidewalk on the existing bridge. And so we can't do anything to the bridge until they're out of the way. And their plan is to actually bore underneath the river on the south side of the bridge, right along the right-of-way line. And then they have a manhole in the intersection on the east side of the bridge that they'll go from there through that bored line under the river. And then they'll have a manhole on the west side of the bridge, on the south side of the bridge. And then they're gonna connect back up to where there's, sure, you've walked across the bridge, there's a manhole right in the middle of the sidewalk on the northwest corner. And that cannot stay in the sidewalk. The ADA does not allow you to have a manhole lid in the sidewalk anymore. So they actually have to move that manhole. Then they plan, from what they told me, they were gonna plan on moving it farther to the north and maybe a little bit to the west. And then, so they're gonna have to connect up with that manhole, or that new manhole to their underground line. And then, so that has to happen before the bridge contractor can get out there. And they told me that they could do this in February. And one of the issues with the coordination with them was that they wanted to be able to, they asked me if we take out this existing manhole, can we leave that sidewalk? Do we have to pour new concrete where that sidewalk is for the period of time from when they do that work and then to when the bridge contractor gets out there? And I talked with Aaron and we decided that as long as they put some gravel in there or something just to make it passable, is good enough. And then the next question they had was, can they actually open cut across Sumner Avenue when they do their, connect from that new manhole to their other, that are crossing of the river. And I don't know exactly what they decided they wanted to do on that. Have you talked to them anymore about that? But anyway, they wanted to, the benefit of that is that they don't have to do underground boring and go under the road. And we are gonna remove the approach anyway. So that also seemed, I think what we told them was that as long as they can make it passable for the short period of time between the time they get their work done and the time we actually close the road, it would be an acceptable solution, so.
So a couple days, they'd shut the bridge down more or less and do the
Yeah,
cut.
I mean,
pull out.
hopefully, they plan on being out there this month, is what I was told, so, if they get out there in February, then it might be could be like to the middle of May, which that would be